Title: The Dragon's Shadow, Luck, Fate, and the Fall of a Legend. Chapter 1: The Rise of the Dragon. Hong Kong, 1971. The air was thick with the scent of salt water and exhaust fumes from the neon-lit streets of Kowloon. Bruce Lee stood in the dimly lit office of Golden Harvest Studios, his arms crossed, his expression unreadable. Across from him, Raymond Chow, co-founder of the studio and one of the most powerful men in Asian cinema, leaned back in his leather chair, a cigarette dangling from his fingers. "You're on fire, Bruce," Chow said, exhaling a slow stream of smoke. "The Way of the Dragon is going to be bigger than we imagined." Bruce didn't smile. He never did when it came to business. "It's not just the film, Raymond. It's the message. Martial arts isn't just about fighting, it's about discipline, philosophy. People need to understand that." Chow chuckled. "And they will. But first, they need to see you kick ass. And you do that better than anyone." Bruce had just wrapped The Way of the Dragon, his directorial debut, and the early screenings were electric. Audiences roared when he faced off against Chuck Norris in the Coliseum, a fight that would go down in history. The film was a hit in Hong Kong, and word was spreading fast: Bruce Lee was no longer just a martial artist. He was a star. But Bruce wasn't satisfied. He wanted more. He wanted Enter the Dragon. Chapter 2: The Gambler's Instinct. Raymond Chow had built Golden Harvest on instinct. He had taken a chance on Bruce when no one else would, when the big studios like Shaw Brothers had dismissed him as too arrogant, too unpredictable. But Chow saw something in Bruce, something raw, something unstoppable. And now, as the numbers rolled in, Chow couldn't help but feel a twinge of superstition. "You know, Bruce," he said one evening over drinks at a high-end Kowloon bar, "I think you're lucky." Bruce raised an eyebrow. "Lucky?" Chow nodded. "Every project you touch turns to gold. The Big Boss, Fist of Fury, both broke records. And now The Way of the Dragon. It's like you've got some kind of mojo." Bruce smirked. "Luck has nothing to do with it. Hard work, discipline, preparation, that's what wins fights. That's what makes a film succeed." Chow waved a hand. "Call it what you want. But I've been in this business long enough to know when a man's got the gods on his side." Bruce didn't believe in luck. He believed in will. In focus. In the relentless pursuit of perfection. But he also knew that in the world of cinema, perception was everything. And if Chow believed he was lucky, then that was just another tool in his arsenal. Chapter 3: The Deal of a Lifetime. Enter the Dragon was supposed to be Bruce's masterpiece. A Hollywood co-production, the first major martial arts film with an international budget, a global cast, and a story that would elevate the genre beyond cheap exploitation. Warner Brothers was backing it. The world was watching. But as pre-production dragged on, Bruce grew restless. The studio wanted changes, more sex, more violence, less philosophy. Bruce fought them at every turn. "You're making a mistake," he told the producers during a tense meeting in Los Angeles. "This film isn't just about fighting. It's about meaning." The executives exchanged glances. One of them, a slick-haired man in a too-tight suit, leaned forward. "Bruce, we're not making a documentary. We're making a movie." Bruce's jaw tightened. He had been here before, compromising his vision for the sake of money. But this time, he wouldn't back down. Raymond Chow, who had flown in to mediate, pulled Bruce aside after the meeting. "Listen to me," he said in a low voice. "You're winning, but you're pushing too hard. These people don't understand what you're trying to do. Let them think they're in control. Then, when the cameras roll, you take over." Bruce studied Chow's face. The man was a survivor, a gambler. And right now, he was betting everything on Bruce. "Fine," Bruce said. "But I'm not changing the fight scenes. And I'm not cutting the philosophy." Chow clapped him on the shoulder. "That's my boy. Now go show them what a real dragon looks like. Chapter 4, The Turning Point. Filming began in Hong Kong. The sets were massive, the action sequences more ambitious than anything Bruce had done before. He trained the cast relentlessly, pushing them to their limits. The crew whispered that he was possessed, that no man could work as hard as Bruce Lee and not burn out. But Bruce thrived under pressure. He was in his element, directing, choreographing, performing. The fight scenes were revolutionary. The story, though simplified for Western audiences, still carried the weight of his philosophy. And then, one evening, as the crew wrapped up a particularly grueling day, Chow pulled Bruce aside. "You know," he said, lighting another cigarette, "I've been thinking. Maybe luck does have something to do with this." Bruce frowned. "What are you talking about?" Chow exhaled. "I've been in this business for decades. I've seen stars rise and fall. But you? You're different. It's like the universe is bending for you. Every door opens. Every shot lands. Every punch connects." Bruce shook his head. "That's not luck, Raymond. That's preparation." Chow smiled, but there was something uneasy in his eyes. "Maybe. Or maybe the gods are smiling on you." Bruce didn't like the way Chow was looking at him. Like he was a man standing on the edge of a cliff, about to be pushed. Chapter 5, The Omen. 3 weeks before the film's completion, Bruce started having strange dreams. In one, he was standing in a vast, empty arena, the sand beneath his feet stained with blood. A faceless opponent stood across from him, silent, waiting. Bruce threw a punch and missed. His opponent didn't move. He just vanished. And then Bruce was alone, the weight of the world pressing down on his shoulders. He woke up in a cold sweat. The next day, he was sparring with one of his students when he felt a sharp pain in his lower back. It was nothing, just a twinge, but it lingered. He ignored it. He had a film to finish. But the dreams continued. And the pain grew worse. Chow noticed the change in Bruce's demeanor. "You okay?" he asked one afternoon as they watched dailies. Bruce forced a smile. "Just tired. Long days." Chow studied him for a moment, then nodded. "Don't push yourself too hard. We've got this." But Bruce did push. Because that's what he did. That's what had made him a legend. Chapter 6, The Last Reel. July 10, 1973. Bruce was in his apartment in Kowloon Tong, reviewing the final edits of Enter the Dragon. The film was nearly done. The world premiere was set for August. Everything was falling into place. His wife, Linda, was in the kitchen, preparing dinner. Their son, Brandon, was playing in the living room. Bruce leaned back in his chair, rubbing his temples. The pain in his back had spread to his head. He had taken painkillers, but they weren't helping. Linda walked in, carrying a plate of food. "You should eat something." Bruce nodded, forcing himself to sit up. "I will. Just need to finish this." She hesitated, then sat beside him. "You've been working non-stop. Maybe you should take a break." Bruce shook his head. "No time. The film. The film will be fine," she said gently. "You won't." Bruce didn't answer. He couldn't. Because deep down, he knew she was right. But he also knew that if he stopped, even for a moment, the momentum would be lost. And Bruce Lee didn't lose momentum. Chapter 7, The Fall. July 20, 1973. Bruce was at Golden Harvest Studios, meeting with Raymond Chow and Betty Ting Pei, a Taiwanese actress. They were discussing a new project, Game of Death, the film that would become his unfinished masterpiece. But Bruce wasn't feeling well. His head was pounding. He excused himself to lie down in Betty's apartment. Chow waited in the living room, flipping through scripts. After an hour, he grew concerned. He knocked on the bedroom door. No answer. He opened it. Bruce was on the bed, unconscious. Chow's blood ran cold. Chapter 8, The Aftermath. Bruce Lee was rushed to the hospital. Doctors worked frantically to revive him, but it was too late. He was 32 years old. The news sent shockwaves through the world. Fans mourned. The film industry reeled. And Raymond Chow, who had once believed Bruce was lucky, was left with a question that would haunt him for the rest of his life. What if luck had nothing to do with it? What if Bruce had simply been too good, too fast, too unstoppable, and the universe couldn't handle it? Enter the Dragon was released posthumously. It became the highest-grossing martial arts film of all time. Bruce Lee became a legend. But Raymond Chow never spoke of luck again. Because some things, he realized, were never about luck at all. They were about fate. And fate, unlike luck, could not be controlled. The end. O legado que neo moru. Os dias que se seguirão a morte de Bruce Lee foram de silencio pasado nos estudios de Golden Harvest. Raymond Chow sento esse MSU escritorio, as paredes cobertas de posters de filmes que agora pareciam reliquias de tempo que neo voltaria. O telefone tocava sem parar, jornalistas, projetores, fos enlouquecidos, mas ele neo atendia. Apenas olhava para a mesa, onde uma cópia do roteiro de Game of Death repousava, inacabado. As páginas estavam marcadas com anatecos de Bruce, rabiscos frenéticos cantones e ingles, citas apontando para cenas que nunca serão filmadas. Naquele momento, Chow entendeu algo que o assombraria para sempre. Bruce neo era apenas astro. Ele era uma força de natureza, homem que tinha desafiado o próprio conceito de limite. E, como toda força desmedida, havia traído algo maior, algo que neo podia ser domado, nem mesmo por ele. A maldição do dragão. 6 meses depois, o mundo ainda neo havia se recuperado. Enter the Dragon continuava nos cinemas, quebrando records, mas a euforia era tinhada de melancolia. Hong Kong, jovem lutador chamado Jackie Chan, que havia sido figurante alguns filmes de Bruce, foi chamado ao escritório de Chow. Ele entrou hesitant, como se temesse que o fantasma do mestre ainda vagasse pelos corredores. Você quer ser o próximo Bruce Lee, disse Chow, sem rodeos. Jackie abriu a boca para protestar, mas as palavras moraram sua garganta. Ele sabia que era verdade. Neo sei, continua Chow, com uma voz que soava como aviso. Bruce neo era titulo a ser herdado. Era fardo. E fardos como esse, eles quebram as pessoas. Jackie saia dali com mais dúvidas do que respostas. Mas uma coisa era certa, ele neo queria ser o próximo Bruce. Queria ser ele mesmo. E foi assim que, anos depois, ele se tornou Jackie Chan, neo substituto, mas algo novo. O último segredo. Anos se passaram. Raymond Chow envelheceu, os cabelos brancos contrastando com a pele ainda firme, marcada pelas rugas de quem havia visto demais. Uma noite de insônia, ele pegou velho caderno de anatecos, onde havia registrado conversas com Bruce. Folhando as páginas, encontrou algo que neo lembrava de ter escrito. O dragão neo mor. Ele apenas muda de forma. Chow fechou o caderno com força. Naquela mesma semana, recebeu uma ligação de Linda Lee, a viúva de Bruce. Ela estava Hong Kong e queria vê-lo. Quando se encontraram, Linda estava mais serena, mas seus olhos carregavam uma tristeza que o tempo neo havia apagado. Raymond, disse ela, colocando uma queixa sobre a mesa, Bruce disse algo para você. Dentro, havia uma fita cassete e bilhete. Para Raymond, que semper cas saber o que me fazia diferente. A resposta neo esta no que eu fazia, mas no que eu neo fazia. O universo tem medo do vazio. E eu era o vazio que ele neo podia preencher. Bruce. Chow clutched the ribbon in his hands, feeling the weight of something that couldn't be explained. That night, he heard it alone in his office. Bruce's voice echoed, calmly, as if he were there beside him. You always said I was lucky. But luck is for those who wait. I didn't wait. I acted. And when you act without fear, the world has to bend. Or break. I broke. But what matters is not how I fell. It's how I flew before I fell. The tape ended. Chow turned off the recorder and looked out the window. Outside, Hong Kong glowed, alive, indifferent. He smiled, for the first time in years. You won, Bruce, he murmured. You always won. Epilogue, The Dragon That Never Left the Scene. Decades later, in a small film studio in Kowloon, a young director named Quentin Tarantino watched a restored copy of Fist of Fury. Beside him, an old projector spat out grainy images of Bruce Lee, immortal in his fury. This guy wasn't human, Tarantino said, impressed. The technician, a gray-haired man, laughed. He was more than human. That's why the universe couldn't hold him. Tarantino did not respond. But that night, as he wrote the script for Kill Bill, he found himself thinking about Bruce Lee. Not as an idol, but as an idea, something that couldn't be contained, not even by death. And so, the dragon continued flying. Always flying. The dragon's last breath. The studio in Kowloon smelled of burnt celluloid and old sweat. The projector coughed out its last images, as if resisting letting Bruce Lee go. Tarantino, eyes glued to the screen, felt something snap inside him, not empty admiration, but a sudden, almost violent realization. The dragon didn't die. He just changed shape. Years later, in a seedy Los Angeles bar, a woman with scars on her face and a smile that didn't match her reputation sat next to a man in a white suit. She ordered a whiskey. He, a green tea. Do you know who I am? She asked, turning the glass between her fingers. Beatrix Kiddo, he replied, without looking at her. Or should I call her bride? She laughed, a dry sound, like dry leaves being stepped on. And you are Bill. The man who tried to kill me. I didn't try. I achieved. She raised her left hand, showing the wedding ring she still wore. You failed. Bill finally looked at her. His eyes were cold, but there was something in them, a shadow of what had once been passion, or perhaps just the recognition of a mistake. I saw Fist of Fury when I was a kid, he said, changing the subject. That kick on the poster. That anger. I wanted to be like that. And what have you become? She asked, without judgment. Someone who needed to be stopped. She finished the whiskey in one gulp. Then let me do this. The fight that followed was not like the movies. There were no perfect choreographies, no epic screams. It was dirty, fast, brutal. Bill fell first, with a blade hidden in his shirt sleeve, a cheap trick, unworthy of a master. But Beatrix didn't care. She watched him bleed on the floor, his white suit stained red, and thought of Bruce Lee. Not the legend, but the man who had died too soon, as if the world wasn't big enough to contain him. You win, Bill muttered, echoing words from decades ago. She didn't respond. He just cleaned his sword and left, leaving the body behind. The legacy that does not die. Years later, in a dojo in Hong Kong, a 12-year-old girl landed a perfect kick on the punching bag. His master, an old man with tired eyes, nodded approvingly. You have the fire, he said. Like him. Who? She asked, panting. A man who didn't know how to lose. She smiled, imagining a dragon on fire, flying above the clouds. And, without knowing it, the cycle continued. Somewhere, Bruce Lee watched. Maybe in an old movie, maybe in a dream. Maybe nowhere. But the dragon never left the scene. The legacy that does not die. Mei Ling's blade still held the scent of blood as she crossed the ruined temple courtyard. The stones beneath their feet were cracked, scarred by decades of forgotten battles, and the wind carried the whisper of the ghosts that had fallen there. Bill had not been the first, nor would he be the last. But it was the last of his. She stopped before an old well, where the water reflected not her face, but that of a man with narrow eyes and a defiant smile. "You won," he had said once, after a fight that lasted 3 days and 3 nights, in the rain, until you both fell exhausted, with no clear victor. Mei Ling touched the scar on her shoulder, a gift from that duel. "I always win," he thought. But victory had never brought relief. On the other side of the world, in a tiny apartment in Kowloon, a man named Chin watched the news on television. The report showed images of a fire in a warehouse in the industrial district, where bodies had been found among the rubble. One of them, according to unconfirmed sources, belonged to a former American soldier known only as Bill. Chin turned off the device and poured himself some tea. "I knew Mei Ling was alive." He had always known. "And I also knew that, sooner or later, she would return." The Shadow Dojo. Master Lao was a man of few words, but his eyes spoke for him. When the girl, Li Wei, landed the perfect kick on the punching bag, he saw not just technique, but something deeper, the same restrained fury, the same refusal to accept limits. "Like him." "Who?" asked Li Wei, panting, hands resting on his knees. Lao hesitated. It was not common to talk about the dead, especially that dead man. But something about the girl made him break the silence. A man who believed rules were made to be broken. That the body was a weapon, and the mind, gunpowder. He died young, but left more than scars. Li Wei frowned. Was he a hero? The master laughed, a dry, joyless sound. No. He was a man who loved fighting more than he loved living. And that, child, is dangerous. She didn't understand. But he kept the words, as he kept every lesson, every blow, every bruise. The next day, she returned to the dojo before dawn, alone, and repeated the kick until her legs shook. When Lao arrived, he found her lying on the floor, her fingers still clenched into a fist. "Why do you do this?" he asked, helping her to get up. "Because someone has to continue," she replied, as if it were obvious. Lao didn't say anything. He just nodded, as if waiting for that answer. The return. Mei Ling returned to Hong Kong in the hottest summer the city had ever seen. The streets stank of burning oil and rotting fish, and the air felt heavy like a closed fist. She didn't look for Chen right away. First he went to Bruce's old neighborhood, where the tea shop still displayed photos of him on the walls, now faded with age. He stopped in front of one of them, a black and white image of Bruce in Enter the Dragon, his finger pointed at the camera, defying the world. "You're still here," he murmured, touching the glass. A voice behind her replied. "He never left." Mei Ling turned around. Chin was older, his hair gray, his posture still upright, but his eyes tired. He held a cane, but she knew she didn't need it. "You killed him," he said, without accusation in his voice. "He forced me. We are all forced, at some point." Chen took a step forward. "But you chose." Mei Ling didn't respond. "I knew he was right." "Why did you come back?" "Because the cycle is not over." Chin smiled sadly. "You were always stubborn. And you always knew too much." He pointed to a narrow alley. "Let's go. There's someone you need to meet." Approval. Lao's dojo was on the top floor of a decaying building, where the smell of incense mixed with that of old sweat. When Chen and Mei Ling entered, Li Wei was in the center of the mat, fighting 3 older students. She was quick but unbalanced, making up for her lack of technique with pure ferocity. "Enough," said Lao, raising his hand. The students backed away, panting. Li Wei looked at Mei Ling curiously but without fear. Who is she? He asked, wiping the sweat from his forehead. Someone who will test you, replied Lao. Mei Ling took off her coat, revealing the scars on her arms. Li Wei did not look away. Do you want to continue the cycle? Asked Mei Ling. The girl hesitated for a second. Then he lifted his chin. I want. Then fight. There was no warning. Li Wei attacked first, a spinning kick that Mei Ling dodged with ease, counterattacking with a blow to the stomach that knocked the girl to the ground. Li Wei coughed but got up immediately. Again, she said. This time, Mei Ling didn't hold back. Each strike was precise, calculated, but carried an anger that Li Wei did not understand. The girl fell, got up, fell again. In the third round, she was covered in bruises, but still standing. Enough, said Lao, but Mei Ling ignored him. Why don't you give up? He asked, stopping for a moment. Li Wei spat blood onto the mat. Because someone has to win. Mei Ling smiled. A genuine smile, for the first time in years. Then win. And he attacked with everything. The dragonfly again. When the fight ended, Li Wei was on his knees, his arms shaking but his eyes shining. Mei Ling reached out her hand and helped her up. You're good, he said. But you need to learn to lose. Lose? Yes. Because only those who know how to lose really know how to win. Li Wei frowned but nodded. Chen watched from the door, silently. Lao approached him. She will be better than him, said the master. Or you'll die trying, Chen replied. Maybe both. Mei Ling turned to the two. The cycle continues. But now it's hers. And for the first time in decades, he felt something like peace. Outside, the sun was setting over Hong Kong, turning the sky red and gold. Somewhere, a television was showing an old movie, and Bruce Lee's voice echoed through the streets. Don't pray for an easy life. Pray for the strength to face a difficult one. And the dragon, after all, never left the scene.